Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are going to completely reframe chronic task avoidance. We're going to stop looking at it as some shameful time management issue and start exploring it together as a truly fascinating neurobiological one. If you've ever stared at a blank screen, desperately wanting to work but feeling, literally glued to your chair, you are absolutely in the right place.
So let me ask you a direct question right off the bat. Are you just lazy? I want to immediately challenge that preconceived guilt you might be carrying around right now. The myth that your inability to start tasks is a personal failing, a lack of discipline, or just plain sloth is completely scientifically unfounded. Your brain isn't broken. It's actually executing a highly complex, self-protective maneuver.
And just to prove that this isn't some modern character flaw caused by us staring at our smartphones all day, get this. The Greek poet Hesiod wrote, "Do not put your work off till tomorrow and the day after." He wrote that around 700 BC. Humans have been fighting this exact same battle for almost 3,000 years. So clearly, we're dealing with a deeply rooted biological drive here, not a modern glitch.
Here is our agenda for today. We're covering 1. The procrastination myth, 2. Your brain on procrastination, 3. The perfectionism trap, 4. Rewiring the emotional response, 5. Systems for cognitive scaffolding, and finally, 6. Engineering your workspace.
All right, let's dive right into sections 1 and 2, the procrastination myth and your brain on procrastination. We absolutely must separate the myths from the neurological realities of project avoidance.
To fix the problem, we first have to accurately self-diagnose it. Clinical literature actually distinguishes between 3 distinct behaviors that we usually just lump together under the umbrella of procrastination. First, there's standard procrastination. This is a voluntary delay for short-term gratification. You can still easily do other things. Second is safety avoidance. This is all about threat mitigation. Delaying functions as a safety behavior when a task feels like an emotional exposure, like a deep fear of judgment. And third is task paralysis. This is an executive dysfunction, a complete mental freeze, often triggered by sensory overload or choice fatigue, which is heavily seen in neurodivergent individuals. So, think about it for a second. Which one do you feel is currently blocking you?
Now, no matter which of those states you're in, they all stem from a literal tug-of-war happening inside your brain between the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system. Your prefrontal cortex is your executive control center. It wants to plan, sequence, and achieve those future goals. But your limbic system, that processes emotional salience and threat detection. When a project is ambiguous or high stakes, your brain registers it as an actual, literal threat. This triggers what we call an amygdala hijack, where your emotional center completely overpowers your executive center, basically screaming for immediate relief.
What's truly fascinating here is the temporal mood regulation model pioneered by Dr. Fuchsia Sirois and Dr. Timothy Peichel. It completely blows the time management myth out of the water. Procrastination is actually a maladaptive emotional regulation strategy. When a task makes you feel anxious or bored or maybe incompetent, avoiding it gives you an instant massive dose of relief. You are just trying to repair your mood in the short term. You end up prioritizing immediate emotional safety over your long-term goals.
Moving right along to section 3, the perfectionism trap. Let's look at how avoiding evaluation and the inner workings of our mind sabotage our execution.
Just take a listen to this deeply relatable confession from a student in a BBC report. They said, "I feel as though everything I write has to come out perfectly in the first draft." I mean, who hasn't felt like that? This rigid expectation causes overwhelming pressure. When you tie your fundamental self-worth to your output, a complex project isn't just a task anymore, right? It becomes a terrifying test of your core identity.
So, what does this all mean? The crucial point is that avoidance essentially becomes a subconscious safety behavior. By delaying action, you preserve a comfortable fantasy. You get to tell yourself, well, I could have produced a flawless result if I only had more time. It protects your ego from the harsh reality of imperfect, messy execution. But it also keeps you entirely stuck.
Which brings us to section 4, rewiring the emotional response. To get unstuck, we have to establish safety, shifting our focus toward actionable interventions designed to down-regulate the nervous system's threat response. The first step is battling what's known as the Voldemort effect. This is the phenomenon where avoiding the acknowledgement of a fear actually gives it total subconscious control. We combat this using cognitive defusion and affect labeling. So don't just say, I'm lazy and can't write this report. Instead, state exactly what is happening out loud.
My nervous system is experiencing a fear of failure regarding the statistical section of this report. Naming the exact fear literally downregulates the amygdala and brings your prefrontal cortex back online.
We can build on that using Dr. Judson Brewer's 3 gears for habit change. Gear 1. Map your loop. Identify the trigger, the avoidance behavior, like maybe endless research or suddenly deciding you need to deep clean your house, and the momentary relief it brings. Gear 2. Investigate the cost. Really feel the guilt and the physical tension that immediately follows that brief relief. And finally, Gear 3. The bigger, better offer. Replace the fear loop with curiosity-driven engagement. Ask yourself, what would it look like to write the worst possible first draft on purpose? Doing that bypasses your brain's threat monitor completely.
Okay, Section 5, Systems for Cognitive Scaffolding. Once emotional safety is established, we can finally introduce structural systems to relieve your working memory.
Let's talk tactics and compare the top productivity frameworks so you can pick the one that matches your specific cognitive obstacle. If your problem is an overwhelming number of concurrent projects and anxiety about dropping the ball, getting things done, or GTD, is great. It helps by externalizing everything from your brain into a trusted capture system. Now, if your problem is task initiation and fear of starting, the Pomodoro Technique works best. It lowers the psychological barrier to just 25 minutes of focus. Or if your problem is that reactive emails keep displacing your deep work, time blocking is absolutely your best fit. The key here: don't try to use all of them at once. Just pick the tool that solves your primary bottleneck.
To put this into practice for large, really intimidating projects, we can look to an excellent academic framework. Bowdoin College has this Student Success Skills program for their polar bears, and it provides a masterful blueprint for unblocking overwhelming academic or professional projects.
They outline a highly effective 4-step method for project deconstruction. First, define your milestones. Break the giant project down into weekly or daily phases. Second, define the microtasks for each milestone using specific, active verbs. Say, write 300 words, not some vague verb like work on report. Third, sequence them logically. And fourth, this is a real game changer. Schedule them backward from your deadline, deliberately overestimating how long they will take. By applying this method, it's like shattering a giant boulder into little pebbles. A vague, anxiety-inducing blob called writing a paper shatters into tiny tasks. It becomes distinct milestones: research, outline, first draft, revision. And then those are broken down into unintimidating single-action tasks like meet with librarian or write introduction. Actually writing these out on physical index cards is an incredible way to instantly relieve your cognitive load.
And finally, Section 6, Engineering Your Workspace. Psychologist Kurt Lewin famously proved that changing human behavior requires us to remove friction from our physical environment. You need to systematically eliminate the environmental friction that gives you an excuse to quit. Put the top third of your monitor at eye level to prevent cervical spine fatigue. Follow the 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes, look 20 feet away for 20 seconds to prevent eye strain. Use bright, cool temperatures, circadian lighting in the morning to keep your executive function sharp. And definitely use digital gating software to block distracting websites. That way, your prefrontal cortex doesn't have to waste precious energy constantly resisting temptation.
Let's layer in some neurobiology tactics from experts like Dr. Andrew Huberman to override baseline limbic friction. Try something called task bracketing. Schedule your most demanding high-friction tasks during the first 8 hours of your waking cycle. That's when your dopamine and norepinephrine levels are naturally elevated. And hey, if you are stuck in a total motivational trough, you can do a dopamine baseline reset. Exposing yourself to a brief physical stressor, like a cold shower or just a minute of fast-paced push-ups, can trigger a fast rebound in baseline dopamine, restoring your biological drive to tackle the work.
So, here's my final challenge to you. The 5-minute rule states that you can commit to just 5 minutes of a dreaded task with full permission to stop after 300 seconds. Because starting is the absolute hardest part, physical momentum almost always carries you forward once you begin. So, will you take 5 minutes of curious, imperfect action today? I challenge you to try it before this explainer even fades out. Remember, you are not lazy, you are perfectly equipped to conquer this. Now, go start.